Brilliant. So today we're here to talk about project management training for PRISMs, so the pros and cons of this. So this came about because we, following the conference that we had back in November, formal project management training was discussed, and it was we were trying to understand whether it was a viable option for PRISMs. So I'll just talk through the breakdown of today. So this is what our schedule looks like for today. So we're obviously just welcoming everyone here. We've got some wonderful people who are going to talk about their experiences with some formal project management training. So we've got Hannah Jones, who's going to talk about her experience with APM. Isabella's going to talk about her experience with Prince 2. We'll have a few discussions today. And then we've also got lovely Connie Zellick coming along, who here at Newcastle, we do actually have a sprint method that we use to deliver a lot of activities across the university. And Connie helped develop this from the Agile training into something that's more usable in a higher education setting. So she'll talk about that as well. So yeah, welcome to all those people. And just to say, you know, we also hopefully have a couple of people who deliver some of this training from APM, and remind me, Isabella, is there someone else here?
There's a couple of other project management consultancies also on the call who are interested in listening to what it is that PRISMs need and how it's different from the standard.
Excellent. So hopefully that will be useful to have those people involved too. So as we started a few minutes late, so I think we're going to jump into some icebreaker discussions. There's a Mentimeter there. So is that on the next slide, Isabella? Just
icebreaker discussions first, and then Mentimeter when we start coming back out to record some of the data that you've talked about.
Brilliant. So what we'd like everyone to discuss in these breakout rooms. So if we leave this slide up, I don't think you'll be able to see it. So maybe if you can all maybe take a little picture of it for those sessions. So we thought we'd get everyone discussing straight from the back. So we're going to look at why we're interested in project management training, what training you've had so far, what training you're considering, and why. And who will fund that training. And you might not know the answers to some of these, but hopefully you can get some inspiration through those discussions, or these are things that you can take back to your institution to explore. So we're going to spend 10 minutes in those sessions, and then we'll come back together and we'll look at that those Mentimeter questions, and then we'll dive into some of those more formal talks. Great. Any questions before we jump out into breakout rooms? No. So Sean, I believe, are you hitting the button for that one?
I am. I'll just do it now. Sorry, give me 1 second.
That's okay. Oh, and thanks to Isabella's put the questions in the chat.
You should be directed now to the rooms.
Yep, got the message. Thanks, Sean. We'll see you all back in about 10 minutes.
Oh, everybody hear me? I can see that you can't join, Elizabeth, so it's just myself and Emily at the moment, I think. Emily, do you want me to assign you to a breakout room? 2021. There.
Okay.
Susie, can you hear me?
Mute. Hello, are we all back? Yes, I'm getting some nods. That's good. You can hear me. And can we all see the main screen? You're not seeing my background. So hopefully you had some useful discussions in those initial icebreaker sessions. So I don't know, Isabella, do you need to do something on these Mentimeter slides? Has she come back in the room? You're not on, Isabella.
So everybody should be able to start talking to the survey using the URL or the code there. The question is whether or not Rachel's slides will show live people's results, because it's my account that's being used and it may not like to play across multiple different accounts, but we'll see what happens. People are replying. Go to the next slide, please, Rachel.
There we go. Is it coming through?
Okay, so it's not coming through. Let me share my screen. If you would, if you would unshare, and I will. Oh, actually, I can kick you off. All right, can you all see that? The live results coming in for the first question. No? Oh no, I got rid of it. Hang on a minute. I is being a bit thick. Say yes when you can see it. Thumbs up. Thank you, Norhan. Right, good. So this is working. I wanted to do a bit of capturing who's done what, who hasn't done anything. How many answers have we had so far? 47. I'll give it a few more seconds, and then we can move on into the next one. 49. All right, so lots of Prince2, much less APM, almost no PMI. Few people have done the LinkedIn course, loads of in-house training. That's really interesting. And a minority with no training so far. That's all very useful information. Thank you very much. I'm going to go on to the next one, if I know how. Oh, hang on. How about I show you it the proper way? There we go. We've got a lot of very self-motivated people in the PRISM network, Rachel. But we knew that. Interesting how few people have got it listed as standard for my role. And now I'm wishing I'd asked what some of the other reasons were. But so if you're one of the people who's ticked other reason, perhaps you could bring that up in the discussion group when we next go into one, or bring it up in the Q&A, because it would be interesting to know what people's other motivations are. Or stick it on the Padlet, that's coming up. All right, I'm going to move on to the next one. Next question is, what is the training that you are considering now? I've left this as a word cloud, so you can type whatever you like, because there's so many different options. I didn't want to do an endless tick box exercise. So if you know the name of a qualification, you can write that, or you can say, I don't know yet. If you've got a particular kind, if you want Agile, you want sprints, or you want standard, you want waterfall, put whatever team, whatever terms you want. There's lots of I don't know. Prince2 is coming through, and Agile, and APM.
I don't know is good. You might hopefully learn something today and help you decide.
Yeah, that's what we're here for. Not convinced somebody's written. I like that. Lots of I don't knows. Very cool. Because I don't know is also part of the story, isn't it, for PRISMs? Here we are with project managers, and an awful lot of them are saying, I don't know whether I need this. That's that's state of the art. That's state of the field. We need to know this as a professional organization. So thank you. All right, next one. There are two more. This is about embedding. Is there anyone working in an organization where this is embedded, or if it's embedded somewhere else but not at yours? All right, that's a good spread. Not as far as I know is the obvious winner. That's also very indicative of HEIs, even in 2024. So here we are. Thank you all very much. And let's move on to the last one. Who would fund your training? Not sure. That fits with the I don't knows. Seems perfectly reasonable to me. Interesting that the fixed term grant and core funding is about equal. Depends on what grant you're on, doesn't it? And 5 people looking to do it themselves. Yes, well, it's expensive, isn't it? All right, thank you. I'm going to stop sharing and back to Rachel.
Okay. So I believe we are going to Hannah now. So we're going to have our first of our talks from our kind of, let's say, guest speakers to give some experience, talk about their experience studying one of these qualifications. So we've got Hannah Jones is going to join us. I think Hannah's here already. I have seen her. And she's going to talk about her recent experience studying on the APM project management qualification. Now, Hannah, do I have your slides or are you sharing screen?
I believe I'm sharing them, I think, yeah.
Great, I'll just move over to Hannah and she can, oh, sorry, I should say Hannah's at Newcastle as well.
Okay, great, okay, thank you. Right, I'll share my screen. Okay. Can people see that?
Yes.
See if it's gonna load. Sorry. Okay, can people see that as the full screen? Okay, yeah, thumbs up. Okay, great, super. Great, thank you, Rachel, for the introduction. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. My name's Hannah Jones. I'm a strategic project manager at Newcastle University. And I've just recently completed the APM project management training course. So I'm going to talk about my experience of that and how it's relevant to my role. I've also spent 8 years working as a research project manager on externally funded grants in the School of Engineering at Newcastle as well. So I can speak a little bit to that role as well as the current role that I've got now. So my motivation to do the APM project management course was firstly to develop my knowledge of project management theory, but also how that could be implemented into practice. I started this new role that I have in December 2023, so I'm relatively new to the role and to working in the team and the environment and the setup that I'm currently in. So felt it was a good opportunity to sort of develop some sort of fundamental skills in project management and in terms of my knowledge as well. So it seemed like a timely opportunity, and to learn new tools and techniques. And I just thought it was a great opportunity. And I think we talked about this in the breakout rooms about continuous improvement. So it's sort of a motivator anyway, but it seemed like a really good time for me to do it, given my sort of relative newness to the role. So why APM project management training? It's a recognised qualification. It was an opportunity that was available through Newcastle University to have a funded place on the course and to be considered for that. So that's also a reason why. And it had the course, when we had an initial call with the training provider, it seemed like it was a very structured course, which suits me in terms of how I think and how I process information. It's very much, it was in blocks of three essential blocks around initiating a project, planning a project, and delivering a project. And that seemed to suit me personally in terms of my learning style. So it was very structured format. And yeah, and it just seemed like it's like a great opportunity. And like I say, to have that recognised qualification is great, to have the opportunity to work towards that. And yeah, so it always helps to be part of these courses, and this is why. I put the cost there just if it was of any use to this community. So that was the cost per person, but it was funded, post-funded at Newcastle University. The training format, it was in person, over 5 days, on campus. Newcastle decided to do it 3 days 1 week, 2 days the next week, so it sort of split across 2 weeks, which really worked for me because as I work part-time, so that really worked for me, fitted around my schedule, and it also, I think, helped to have a bit of a gap in between the weeks to reflect and I guess trying to get things to sink in a bit more, and to learn and develop those aspects of being part of the training program. There was 10 people part of the course, so there's 9 others, including me. There wasn't, in terms of the format, there wasn't much group work. There was pockets of group work throughout the course, but it was mainly quite how I'd describe, and I don't know how people would describe it, the professionals delivering the training program, but it seemed quite a traditional model in terms of teaching, essentially, and for us to write notes and to absorb it in the best way that we could. But there was some group work involved there as well, but I would say it was quite minimal. We had slide deck provided, workbooks provided, so we had quite a lot of material provided to support us through our learning journey whilst on the course, and also before the course started as well. And we also had access to practice questions, so at the end of the course we did do an exam. So as part of the training was becoming more accustomed to responding to exam questions, sorry. And just practicing that aspect of it as well. So the time commitment, before the course started, there was pre-course work that was set to, for familiarization with the content, and also do a few activities as well. So that was about, I would say, possibly about 10 hours worth for me, for what I did. And I think, the training provider gives more recommendations around how much time to spend on that, but sort of fitting it in with life and commitments, that was the sort of ballpark hours that I did beforehand. Then it was 4.5 days of classroom learning, and then around half a day, so it was 3 hours 15 minutes of a written exam, which is closed book. And which was on campus, so it was on a laptop, on a computer, written exam. So that was at the end, and it was about 2 hours of homework for each night of the course, and that in between time between week 1 and week 2 as well, just essentially revising and doing the practice questions as well. So that was the general sort of scope of the time commitment there. And then mapping it in terms of my role now, taking the learnings from that course, I think it's around informing my own development, my own understanding of project management methods, and especially in terms of terminology, and just being a lot more up to speed in terms of what terminology means, agile, waterfall, linear, iterative, whatever people are talking about, whatever term they're using. I feel a lot more equipped to just understand that a lot faster. And I think understanding the sort of the knowledge and the detail around different process steps, and, you know, if things arise in projects, perhaps being a bit more equipped to know what are the next steps that need to happen to either address any issues that have come up, or sort of take on board some opportunities that have come up, or changing scope for a project, or changing the schedule to a project, any of these sort of changes, this sort of change management side of it. It's just having that awareness of what steps could be taken to help guide a project through. The course also talks about leadership skills and team working skills as well, which I've done in the past, but it's useful to have that as a refresher, and to sort of have a different perspective now, given the role that I've got and the context that I'm working within, and how the different methods work. So that was useful. And it's around, sorry, something's just slipped out of my mind. I'll hopefully remember it. There's things around like pestle analysis, SWOT analysis, VUCA analysis around, you know, assessing projects in terms of uncertainty, and those sort of aspects are really good to sort of to refresh and recap on, and to apply those thinkings with the projects that I'm working on. So I think it's very, very relevant to the role that I've got now. I think, you know, from a research project management role that I had from externally project funded teams is also, I could see the relevance for that role as well. I think essentially learning the new methods or relearning methods is always helpful, and I think projects seem to follow a certain pattern, and to be able to be to change or have the tools to help change happen, whether it be a strategic project or a research project or whatever project, I think is really, really important. So so that's where I'm at now. Sort of, I did the course, and the exam was in, I think it was in April. I think it finished right at the beginning of May. So sort of still in the sort of relatively early days of reflecting on it, but I think that's currently my thinking at the moment. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you. And any questions?
Thanks, Hannah. That was great. I think there was just a comment that I'd like to just read out in the chat around whether there'd be options around the time commitment. Are these courses offered over a longer period of time? Because for those of us with, you know, job commitment, kids, it's quite hard to fit in such an intense slot. But I don't know if I don't have the answer to that. I don't know if any of our providers on the call might, or if anyone else has any experience with it.
Hiya, Rachel. It's Ian from Q8. First of all, thank you, Hannah, for the slides.
Thank you.
The model tends to be quite standard in the sense of like a 5-day course, but that's not mandated. So you can pretty much do it however you want to. You know, some providers will do it on a public course. So for example, if there was an individual just booking on a course, that might be a bit more fixed around a kind of a Monday to Friday thing. If you're doing like Hannah mentioned, where on a single organization basis, there's much more flexibility. You could do it a day a week, half a day a week, over a period of time. There's no hard or fast rule. There's nothing mandated to say it must be. The only thing it says, because this course in particular is RQF level 4, and so that comes with a certain number of guided learning hours and directed learning hours. So as long as you tick that box, the rest is down to your choice and your preference around how you want to do it.
That's great. Thanks for really useful information. And has anyone got any specific questions for Hannah? We've just got a couple of minutes to take those. Just unmute yourselves and talk, because I can't see everyone at the same time. Anyone?
Hi, can I just ask Hannah a question about the name of the training provider at Newcastle? Is it someone independent of APM, or is it someone that they have actually sourced out locally?
The company is called QA. That they were I believe they were the training provider that provided the APM project management course. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think just there was a comment there about doing it in a cohort's a nice idea. Yeah, if possible. I think we were in a fortunate situation just to add to some of the funding behind that. It's not something that we'd normally fund at Newcastle, but we had an underspend on our people fund, and we'd had a lot of requests through for different trainings, for change management, for project management. So we took a look at this in our leadership group, and decided to dedicate some resources to there. And it was a selective process. We did only put 10 people. We had at least 20 on the list across just the SAGE faculty, which is science, agriculture and engineering. And so it is something we're looking to do in the future, because although it's not everything you do is applicable directly to what you're working on today, but the general, Hannah mentions there, the terminology, some of the frameworks can be used more and applied more broadly. So yeah, we were just in quite a fortunate position there, and I understand these things are quite expensive, and we wouldn't have been able to do that previously. Kate Vaughan's got a hand up.
Right, yeah, I just wondered, that was really helpful what you said from the institution level, because these are some conversations that I'm having in Manchester about whether or not there's a pot of money that we could use. And obviously you can't fund all the research project managers in the whole of the institution, but when you and 10 people sounds like per year sounds like a good idea. What was your sort of criteria of choosing people? Did you have an application process? I'm just trying to work out how we would actually allocate this, because I think there'd be a huge interest.
Yeah, so Hannah and I were talking about this morning. So it might not be clear, sorry, I'm Hannah's line manager. So we put a call out across the faculty, and it was a line manager nominated process. And then we had criteria, because we're doing a big piece on leadership at the moment and our leadership pipeline. And so our criteria for posts were, would it benefit the career development of this person, in their current role, or, the future roles that they're aiming for, looking at, let me think, the benefiting career progression, the relevance to the current role, what are the trainings they've taken recently, because we've got a big push on training at the moment that we're not paying for people to do change and project and leadership all in one go, and then also just any further points put forward by the line manager. So it was, and then the decision was made at our faculty leadership group about who those 10 people would be. And it was tough, it was challenging, because it is an in-demand area, and kind of weighing up why maybe a technical member of staff might use it and not just giving it to all of the project managers, recognizing that it'd be valuable in other areas as well.
That's fantastic, thank you.
Thanks. I think Sabine's got a question, and then we'll have to get moving on to the next, but feel free.
Very quick question.
Okay.
Yeah, so did that come with a membership with APM, and also did you get the manual, and do you still have access to the manual?
That's for Hannah. I didn't do the course.
In terms of membership, do you mean a membership to APM or okay? I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
No,
Yeah.
just to throw in that the PMQ doesn't come with membership. The next level up does come with automatic membership, but the PMQ level that you did, Hannah, doesn't come automatically with membership.
Right. Thank you. I was worried there that I'd missed something. Okay. Okay. And yeah, I mean, Sibi, I know Sibi, you're based in Newcastle, so yeah, we can definitely meet up and talk about what was on the course and yeah, the content.
But you got material to keep, didn't you, off the back of it?
Yes. We got access to a study guide. I don't know if I still got access to that study guide though. I'll have to check because it's something that you can't print.
So yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure. But certainly the sort of learning material, which yeah is good. Yeah, do that. But yeah, you had access to a study guide. I just have to recheck if that's a lifelong access or not.
Mm-hmm. There's some great comments in the chat as well. A couple of the questions I'll answer in there, and then just some comments about you can purchase APM membership separately, things like that. So be sure to look there if you've got any more queries. So I think just looking at time, I think we'll move on to our next speaker. Thanks, Hannah, for that. Everyone give a virtual clap. That was great to hear. And please get in touch, following this if you have any further questions for Hannah on that APM course. So next I'm going to hand over to Isabella, who's going to talk to us about her experience with Prince 2. I think you need to unmute yourself. We can't hear you, Isabella.
Yes.
There we go.
Can you hear me? Can you see my title slide?
Yes, we can.
Brilliant. You'd think I'd know how to do this by now. All right. So I'm just going to get going. I don't have very many slides. So I wanted to talk about why I got it first and why I chose Prince 2. I was new in role and I was in that phase where I didn't really quite have enough to do. And I was curious about getting more project management training, and I did this course that's on LinkedIn, which is called Intro to Project Management. I realized the title of it's not actually, Project Management Foundations, that's on that course, which is good. And I worked through it terribly seriously and realized just how much better I could be at my job if I got a bit more training. And by that stage, I'd already worked formally as a project manager for 5 years in a charity and for the NHS, and I had done 10 years worth of research project management. So I'd done a PhD and 2 postdocs. So I was not new to it, but I still found that doing this LinkedIn course taught me a good deal. And I wanted to know some more. And I wanted to get a certification at that point. I honestly do not remember why I chose Prince 2 and not APM. I think it was because I found Prince 2 just easier to understand what it was that I was buying. I found APM, the 3 qualifications, they're all three-letter acronyms, and I just find it really hard to keep them straight in my head. But I acknowledge that that's not a rational decision, and I don't actually remember why I took it, but I decided to do Prince 2. I also decided to do standard and not agile, and that again was not rational. That was just, agile is something to do with software management, and that's got nothing to do with me. And it was just, and I also just thought, hell, I'll just start somewhere. I don't know where to start, so I'll just start somewhere. And that also brings up something that's actually really, I think, typical. We've seen from the responses on Mentimeter so far. I had no context for this decision. I was working in a business unit of about 6 or 7 people, half academics, half project managers. Nobody had project management training. My boss has been working at Imperial for 10 years. She knew nobody with project management training. And she's extremely well networked within Imperial. And it's only since I've finished the training, I have discovered there is one business unit that I know of where they have an embedded project management system, but they don't seem to work with anybody else. They run really complex European projects and they're a bit siloed from everyone else. So I was, in a sense, free to take the decision, Within Imperial, there was no context. Within the Institute for Molecular Science and Engineering, there was no context. So I just went and got some training. I chose to do a virtual classroom session with a live tutor. So there's all sorts of options here. You can do online self-study, you can do a virtual classroom, there are in-person classrooms. The prices go up each time. Self-study starts at about 300 quid or something. That's with the price for the exam and buying the manual, and then you just work all your way through it. And if you want to do an in-person classroom, then you're up to, 2,000 quid for one PRINCE2 qualification. So that would be foundation or foundation plus practitioner together. I think you could probably get it for that. And I went for doing it with a virtual classroom with a live tutor because it was sort of mid-price, 700 quid. I did the foundation course was a 3-day course followed by a 1-hour closed book exam, which I did a couple of days after the course, and then practitioner was a 2-day course, and again a much longer longer exam, but this time with the open book. They're both online and multiple choice, so you're just clicking options. I didn't do any pre-reading for either course, but I did do evening and weekend revisions before the exam, and then in time for the practitioner course, I went and reread all the foundation material. The exams themselves, they're serious exams, but they're not a stretch if you've done a postgrad qualification. If you see what I mean, it's quite hard to sort of zero in on what audience you're talking to. I was in a group of people for whom exams were very difficult, and I was sitting there going, oh, this is just the usual memory stretch. Okay, fine. The material is extremely dry, though, I have to say. I don't know whether that's true for Hannah, how you found APM was, but I found PRINCE2 was just incredibly dry. Very difficult to keep focus. The exam questions are very standardized. Both courses were crammers. We were being taught to pass the exam because the questions are so standardized, and they're written, the questions are like, which of the following principles are being applied in this situation? And then you've got a choice of 4 principles or 2 principles and a different reason for each. And you're being deliberately tricked into giving the wrong question. It's the wrong answer. It's very, very, I mean, it's all about exam technique, but that's how the exam is. You've got to pass it. So you do. So although it is possible to do these things via self-study and it would be much cheaper, the exam is a technique in itself, and there is a value to having some exam prep work. And you can buy practice exam questions, but you can't buy very many of them. So you're a bit, I found it valuable to do the course. So I want to talk a little bit about what was useful and what was not. So the first thing is I am not in an embedded situation. So there's a limit to how much I can use any of this. I can't use any of the vocabulary, and PRINCE2 comes with quite a lot of vocabulary for names of documents or names of roles, and it allows you to refer to specific bits of a project or specific features of a project very precisely. But if nobody knows what you're talking about, there's not a lot of point. But I did find that the core principles were very useful. These are the core principles. There are 7 of them. There are 7 principles, 7 themes, and 7 processes, and you get to the point where you can recite them because you have to be able to recite them for the exam. But I found particularly the principles were very, very, very useful. So the third one there, focus on products, for example. That means that for every project, you've got to, the whole point of a project is to produce a product. You're not doing a process. So for example, I was in a meeting recently and somebody said, well, we're going to do an outreach program next year. And I thought, that's a process. That's not a product. What's the product? How many events? For which people? For what stakeholders? What's the goal? And just having that little thing in my head to go, hang on a minute, what's the product, makes me a much better project manager. So I've found that that's really helpful. I found the concept of a project board very helpful. So this is the idea of the controlling group at the center of a project, which has got to have 3 points of view represented on it, and they can all be the same person, but you've got to have somebody who's looking after the money, somebody who's thinking about the people who are going to actually do the project, and somebody who's thinking about who's actually going to use the results of the project. So if I'm thinking about that with my outreach project as an example, again, The executive, that's going to be my PI because he controls the grant. The senior supplier, that's going to be whoever it is. That could be an academic because they're the people who are going to actually do the outreach. But who's going to be the senior user? Who do I have access to who could represent the group I'm doing the outreach to? And typically we don't have that person on an outreach project board within university, but this is allowing me to ask really good questions about who's missing, who needs to be in the room, what point of view do we not have? And it means I've made changes by saying, no, actually, I'd like someone from public engagement to be in the room when we talk about that, please, because in my head, I'm thinking, because they're the senior supplier, or because they're the senior user, actually, in this case. Got it wrong, damn it. The starting up a project process I've found useful. There are 7 processes, and please don't get sort of terribly confused by all of this. This is a good example of why Prince2 terminology is really dry, because you end up with lots of sort of drawings like this. But you can see in the middle of this drawing, so top left, you start with the project mandate. That's basically somebody saying, can you look into whether this is possible? And then sort of box number 5 there, it says prepare the outline business case and prepare the project product description. And that basically means you need to write down, or at least I think I need to write down 2 things. First of all, why are we doing this? And secondly, what is it we're actually going to do? And you have to write them down early. And I've just found I'm a much better project manager if I force myself to do that. It can be 1 slide. It doesn't have to be a lot, but if I've got that clear in my head, I'm much better. And also the whole concept of a risk register. I don't know why I'd never thought of doing a risk register before, but my goodness, it's good for my blood pressure if I sit down and write down, I'm doing an outreach program. What if nobody comes? All right, what are my mitigation strategies? Well, I'll do this and I'll do that and I'll do that. Much better. So I found that all of that was very useful. What was not useful? Here is an example of what was not useful. This is the table of management products, which is the terminology for all the various documents that you might want to produce if you're running a full Prince2 structure, which you're going to be doing if you're running something like the Channel Tunnel or HS2, assuming they're using Prince2 methodology. I have no idea. But you don't want to do this if you're running a standard HEI project, because it's just far too much. And so there's an awful lot of detail here that I just haven't been able to use. And there's also just an awful lot of different products there. So if I'm going to keep a daily log, I'm going to keep a lessons log, I'm going to keep a risks log, I'm going to keep a God knows what log. If I had software that would do that sort of semi-automatically, which I haven't looked into yet, that would be much easier. But then again, if it's just me, I can do all this in my OneNote. I can just keep it in my ordinary notes. I don't need to share it with anyone. It doesn't need to be formal. If I were embedded, it would be different, and I'd probably have more cause to use some of this. So all in all, I reckon I probably use about 30% of it, but it was worth getting that 30%. It was definitely worth doing the foundation. I think that really increased the quality of my work. I'm really not convinced practitioner added a great deal to it, except that it gave me another go at the whole program. And in practitioner, you do a couple of worked examples, and that's so much easier to learn. It's so much better to learn. So I found again, practitioner helped, but it wasn't such a big jump. The next stage up for me, there isn't a 3rd Prince2 qualification that I'm aware of, unless I want to go and do an Agile one. But I could start climbing the APM ladder. So you can convert from Prince2 practitioner into the APM middle level, and you can do a cut down version of the exam. I've written I've got a screenshot there, so I might do that. I would actually like to get better at using some of the software. I've started looking into Microsoft Project. I'm looking into how AI is interfacing with project management softwares at the moment. And I'm also getting very curious about how much better this could be if I was part of a team that used all of this language. But there's not a lot of point in me trying to train my current team, because I won't be with them very long, unfortunately. I'm on a secondment. So there we are. That's all I've got. How about some questions?
Yeah. Anyone just raise your hand or mute and ask any questions to Isabella? You can see your notes, Isabella.
Oh. I have no idea how to get back to anything. Can somebody start? Ellie, ask your question. I'm getting really confused here.
It's not so much a question, but more as a, I can confirm that my experience was very similar with Prince2. It's difficult to get it embedded when other people don't use the same methods. And essentially, as you say, there are too many documents and things to reasonably set up. So it's all about tailoring. I can add, I did go on and do the Prince2 Agile course, and that was good for me, but I do work in software development projects. So it's, I would say, very, very similar to you. It's useful as long as you pick and choose what you do with it. And I mostly create my own trackers using Excel. I've given up on trying to use software and make my own. So
yeah. So you've used the magic word tailoring, which is a standard piece of Prince2 terminology, and it's one of the core principles that I put up there. That the whole point is that although they've got this hugely elaborate system to use, you are not supposed to use it without tailoring it. So if you want to do the whole thing on the back of a packet, that's actually using the methodology. So it's a kind of backwards way of thinking about it. I remember coming away the first time I'd done it thinking, oh, surely somebody must have pre-tailored this to HEIs, but no. And that just strikes me as weird.
Yeah, I think we all kind of just do our own, our own row or whatever.
Well, I thought of trying to see whether we could tailor it, and then sort of started having a think about it, and then very quickly worked out that I didn't have the experience to do that competently. So
no, and I think you work with individual academics on these projects in HEI, and they are each unique.
Kim, I can see you've got your hand up as well.
Yeah, so just to say, so I completely echo a lot of your thoughts in that I found it useful as a way of framing my own concepts. But as you say, unless the organization is using it, you can't implement it as it stands. And so using some of the parts like a risk register or, you know, some of the steps that, or the ways of thinking, absolutely. But yeah, in an academic place, it's never going to be implemented as it stands. But having said that, I paid to do Prince2 by myself independently of my organization at the time. And I did it with a bunch of guys, a bunch of people, my apologies, who were employed by Shell, and they use it as it stands. So everyone in their organization uses it as their way of getting through a day, a week, a month, a project. And so they were much more engaged in the terminology, whereas I have to say the terminology for me was so unbelievably dry and I couldn't hook it onto anything in my own framework. And so, yeah, so I'm sure that for Shell, it's absolutely tailored to perfection, but for my academic experience, it is provided a nice mental framework and sort of internal checklist, but nothing more than that, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. That's very similar to my experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you reckon that's true for you too, Hannah? Can we just bring back the APM position here? Is this something that seems similar to you? That you ended up with a lot of vocabulary that's actually not useful? Or is the fact that there was a whole chunk of you from Newcastle doing it means that you have actually been able to bring the vocabulary into your daily life?
No, I think a lot of the vocabulary was already being used, I think. I think it's just my understanding of that vocabulary has evolved. So I think that's been really useful. You know, the difference between project or business as usual or oh yeah, I can't think off the top of my head right now, but you know, things like those sort of terms, it's just the development. So I think APM actually, in terms of terminology, is pretty well aligned to what I'm sort of working in and the sort of projects that I'm involved in now. Possibly less so from the research project management role on the externally funded research projects though. But more so my current role.
Thank you. Kate, you've got your hand up, and then we've probably got to move on. Is that right, Rachel?
Yes. Yeah, and just quite quickly, really. So what I'm taking from this is Prince2 perhaps not really very aligned to research project management. But
I'm in research project management.
But those core principles and the core terminology, is that covered in the LinkedIn foundations of project management. I was just wondering, because that's kind of free, isn't well, I mean, each institution seems to have access to LinkedIn training, and I was just wondering if that would be something that you know could be recommended at that sort of introduction point, rather than investing in Prince2, which is a lot of money for maybe a 20% gain on what you are going to use.
So the LinkedIn project, from what I remember, they used the PMI system, which is not quite the same. And it didn't have such a strong emphasis on these core foundational principles and themes that Prince2 did have. And I don't know whether that's true for APM as well. I suspect, I mean, they're all going to be the same thing, you know, fundamentally when you get right down to it. So I'm not sure it matters terribly which one of them you do, providing you do get some training on the fundamental principles. But I can't remember whether that, I don't think that was in the LinkedIn course, because I remember that being new when I did the Prince2 course. And I just want to pick up on a comment by Lada Zemina. Listening to the speakers and comments, it sounds like there's nothing out there specifically for HE research projects. No, there isn't, as far as we're aware in the PRISM network, but watch this space. We've got some comments on that at the end of this.
And that's what we can discuss now.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Isabella. Another round of applause. That was a great insight for us. Hopefully you can see I'm sharing my screen again. We're going to go to breakout rooms. Sorry, I haven't. We'll just add that link into the chat.
Yes, please.
Yeah, let me just switch that in. And so if you just take a moment to look at those questions, maybe take a photo again. So I'm just trying to navigate 3 screens here. Second. Where's it gone? Chat. Okay. So hopefully that Padlet link has got, Sean's done it as well. Thank you. Oh no, I've sent it to Sean directly, not to everyone. Oh, we're all having a bit of a carry on today.
I've done it, Rachel.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay.
Do you want me to change the timing from 15 to 10 minutes, or shall I keep?
Yes, please.
That would be wonderful. Yes, yes.
Okay.
And yeah, so given what you've heard, we want to, you know, have a bit of a discussion about what struck you about what you've heard. Has it changed your mind at all about your pathway forward? What sounded good, useful, what maybe didn't sound so good? And how does your job type or funding situation or organisation, you know, we've discussed some of this, affect your decision? So we'll get to those breakout rooms if we're ready, Sean.
Yeah.
And we'll come back in 10 minutes to discuss. Thank you. Oh, and if you could add any comments to the Padlet, so please click on there and add what you guys are talking about on there. Thank you.
I'm hoping, will it direct people to the breakout rooms now, Rachel?
I'm getting a join message. Yes.
Oh, right. Okay. Right.
Yeah, we'll go. Thank you.
You're in the breakout room still? Hi everyone, I'm not sure if you were in a breakout room, but I've assigned you to some. If you want to join, feel free to join the conversations. Hi, welcome. Just noticed you're there. We're just in the breakout session at the moment, so they'll be coming back after that in a couple of minutes.
Are we all just coming back across, Sean?
Yes, I think so. I think everyone's back now.
Everyone's back.
Oh, no, actually, there is some people in room 4 still, I think.
I was about to say, I can't see Isabella yet, so I don't think they're all back. She's probably still talking.
No, sorry.
Okay. Let me know when we're all back in and we'll... Are you?
I think everyone's back now.
Great, okay. So hopefully you had some useful discussions there. I mentioned to my room that we'd be, you can still enter stuff on the Padlet if you like. Please continue to do so, and this will help us shape things moving forward, or hopefully shape something moving forward. Isabella, did you want to go into any more detail on the Padlets, or are we happy to? Yes, great. So I notice we have Connie here with us now.
Yes, hello. Hi, Rachel. Hi, everybody.
So Connie's joined us today to talk about the sprint method that's been developed here at Newcastle University. So this is taken from the Agile approach, and I won't take any of Connie's talk, but just to say thank you for joining us, Connie, and I'll hand over to you and share screen as you need to. Hopefully.
Okay, so I just share my slides that I have on the screen right now. Just a moment. Hopefully you are now able to see the slides. Are you able to see them? Just give me a quick note.
Yes, it's in presenter mode. It's right. You're good. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. So first of all, thank you very much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here and to speak about harnessing agile methodology for transformational change, and the sprint approach in specific that we have developed at Newcastle University. So what I will cover today with you is that I give you some background information why we have developed this sprint approach and how we have done it. Then what an agile sprint actually is, the key principles of a sprint, then when a sprint is appropriate or not. We have also developed sprint frameworks for 2 and 3 week sprints, and I will show you the frameworks of that and what the outcome of a sprint is, our minimum viable products and solutions, and the benefits of sprinting. And we have reserved some time for questions at the end. So if you may want to reserve your questions until the end, and then I'm happy to take all of those. So collective why and the how, why we introduced this new approach at Newcastle University. So the starting point was one main driver. We wanted to improve student-related areas very quickly, student experience in general. And in autumn of 2021, we got approval to partner with an external consultancy, which is called the NAUS Group. And we worked with them for 3 months. The goal was to design and deliver an agile proof of concept to show the university and the decision makers that this is a concept that works for the university. And since then, we have developed a tailored agile sprint approach that is really designed to make it work for the university, because universities are a very special place. So we could not take any agile methodology one by one. What we picked as a starting point was the assessment and feedback area, where we have identified some major improvement areas, including student voice in the decision making, student and colleague experience of feedback in general, then timely assessment submission, and many more. So we built up a pipeline, a series of sprints that we wanted to do throughout the next 3 months and then following throughout the next year. And it turned out to be a huge success. So within the 2-week sprints, we have achieved much more than it was anticipated beforehand. And we created huge engagement and buy-in from our stakeholders, from students and colleagues alike. So the situation now is that we have a strong understanding of the new Agile principles and the benefits. We have huge confidence in dealing with ambiguity as well. We trust that a solution can be co-created with stakeholders in a 2-week sprint, and we are totally determined to develop and refine the solutions in practice after the sprint as well. So regarding the training aspect, and this is probably what you are most interested in, the training that we have developed is a bespoke in-house sprint facilitation training, a classroom training for our interested project and change managers across the university. After the classroom training, we recommend that project and change managers who want to facilitate a sprint, that they do shadowing of sprints that are run by experienced facilitators. And then the project and change managers could start with low-risk sprints to get practical experience, if that's possible, and then scale up to higher-risk sprints. For our training, no prior knowledge or experience in Agile is required. So all the information, all the background knowledge you get through the training and the shadowing. So what is an Agile sprint? An Agile sprint is an approach where we work very effectively and efficiently with a small group of people to deliver benefits in a short, defined period of time. So usually it's 6 to 8 people in a sprint team where we provide value at pace. We have frameworks for 2 and 3 week sprints. And the goal is to co-create together with our stakeholders, together with colleagues and students, a solution that contains just enough features for them to use right after the sprint. And I will go into the detail of this in a minute. And it entails a lot of planning, contrary to popular belief of an Agile approach. So it is all about iterative development together with the stakeholders to deliver value. It puts student and colleague experience at the center of everything we do in a sprint. It embraces a fail fast mindset, and we have a culture of continuous learning throughout the sprint and also afterwards, developing the sprint forwards, and also leveraging the vast skills in our multidisciplinary teams. So the key principles of a sprint is, when you hear Agile, you probably think of, just another project management methodology. But Agile is much more than just that. It's a set of values, a set of principles that define the mindset and the behavior of sprinters and sprint teams. So first of all, it's about creating value and value orientation. So we have vast topics to solve. We cannot solve the world, so we focus on the most important tasks first. So prioritization is a big part of value creation, and we want to be aware of the whole context the organization is working in and also the sprint is working in. Then the way of working together, we have multi-skilled and largely self-directed teams. They are empowered to make decisions and to define and deliver their own work in their time. And we build the collaboration on open, honest, transparent communication and cohesion within the sprint team. We regularly revisit our plans, what we develop as a sprint team, and also the sprint process in itself. And we are totally focused on making progress. So the biggest issue is to have blockers or any issues in the sprint team so that they cannot fulfill their tasks. So progress is most important. And relationship building. So we have defined roles and responsibilities in the sprint team that I will show you also in a few slides. And the beauty of every sprint team is that all job titles, all hierarchies are dropped, all the voices are equal in a sprint team. And we build very strongly on interpersonal relationships and develop trust throughout these 2 weeks. So when is a sprint appropriate? That's very important at the beginning to think if a sprint approach is the right thing to do. So actually, a sprint approach is very helpful and very suitable when there is high level of complexity, high uncertainty, when you have a fast changing environment, when the scope or the goal is not clear, when you are totally in the dark, when you have problems that have been worked on for years and you are not getting anywhere with that, when it's difficult to plan costs and timelines as well, or when the requirements are not well defined yet, or when you have very aggressive deadlines, when you need to develop value and benefits at pace. It could also be part of a bigger project, supporting different phases of a project, like rapid discovery, for example, or requirements gathering. Or you can break down a larger project or a larger issue into smaller, more digestible blocks of work, and then accomplish those smaller tasks easier with a sprint. You need to have the right mindset and the right values adopted in a sprint. And all the sprinters need to agree to adopt those. So we talk about empowerment, equality, customer-centric focus, tangible outcomes, and adding value to our stakeholders. So if you have the feeling that the sponsor, the potential sponsor or the business owner of this topic is not fully bought into these values, then you're gonna have problems in this sprint. And then you should think twice if you want to adopt this sprint approach. You also want to focus on maximizing value and focus on innovation, trying out new things, rather than having control over everything that's happening. You need to trust in the sprint team. And what is also very crucial is that the sprinters, the 6 to 8 people that you want to bring together, need to commit to a lot of time, to dedicate time to the sprint, at least 50% of their work week in a 2-week sprint and 30% of their work week in a 3-week sprint. So that's important for them to know upfront before they commit to any sprints. And then when is a sprint not appropriate? It's not appropriate when you're dealing with things like business as usual. And we have a explanation what we mean with business as usual. And I can, of course, share the slides with you afterwards. And the recording, of course. So the business as usual means that we have routine activity, ongoing, recurring activity. So for that, you don't need a sprint. Or also, it's not appropriate when you have interdependent projects going on somewhere else in the organization. The high risk of interference, of not being aligned. So don't use sprints in that sense, in that context. And then if you have a program with different work streams, then a sprint is also not for the whole program is also not suitable. If you want to break down the work streams in different steps, different phases, then a sprint could be suitable. And also it's not suitable when the outcome of a sprint would mean that people would need to change their behavior, their way of working significantly. And what that means is also quickly described here: high degree of process change, totally new technology. So then you cannot solve that in a 2-week sprint or 3-week sprint. So here, please don't feel overwhelmed with this busy slide. It just shows you the framework for a 2-week sprint. And here you see that we have a planning session 3 to 4 weeks before the actual sprint starts. And here you see in the upper row, you see the week 1, and in the lower row, you see week 2. And in week 1, the focus is on the discovery, on defining the real problem of the topic. And the second week is is focused on designing the actual draft of the solution and going back to the stakeholders and validating the draft solution, and then refining the solution and also showcasing the solution to the stakeholders. So you see here, it's in the first week, we go out to stakeholders to listen to them, what they think about the topic, any feedback that they have on any discovery questions that we have. And then in the second week, we go back again to our stakeholders to validate any draft solutions that were created based on their feedback initially. So this shows this co-creation process that makes a sprint so powerful, and where you get a lot of feedback and a lot of inputs and a lot of buy-in from stakeholders. So this is the 2-week sprint. And we have also a framework for the 3-week sprint. It's basically the same phases like discovery, design, and validation and show. But you have a few more days for the different phases. And you have a mini showcase included here, if that's helpful. So, and then going to the roles and responsibilities that I already mentioned beforehand, each sprint needs a sponsor, a senior leader who owns kind of the overall change and who can really solve us in a very quick way to unblock any issues. Then we need a business owner, a person who can drive the solution that is developed forward after the sprint. During the sprint, business owner makes sure that members understand the background of the topic and the context the sprint topic is in, and also assures the value of the MVPs. And then we have the facilitator. So that's my role as a sprint facilitator. We have a facilitator to guide the sprinters through the sprint process, facilitate all the meetings and the sessions, support the sprinters in their work, help them unsolve any blockers and any issues, and hold them accountable for their work. And then the team members themselves, as I said, they manage their own time. They are responsible to raise any blockers early so that they can be solved together, and engage directly with other sprinters, directly with stakeholders, so very empowered, and ensure that all their work is aligned with the overall sprint objectives. Then what is actually the outcome of the sprint? What do we want to deliver? And that's our minimum viable product. And that terminology comes from Agile methodology. It's the so-called MVP. And that is a version of a solution that contains just enough features for stakeholders to be used right after the sprint and put into practice. So it makes our stakeholders happy. And that's the sweet spot that you see here in the middle. It's not a solution that is like poor or of low quality, but it's not the perfect solution either. It's right in the middle. And I can explain that with donuts, if you like. So what we want to deliver at the end of a sprint is the nice tasting, nice looking donut. It's not perfect, but it's just good enough to satisfy your needs. Then you have another iteration where you have sprinkles on top of this donut to make it look better, make it taste better. But it's not the MVP. That is another thing for after the sprint. And the perfect solution would be like a whole range of donuts. And we cannot deliver this in a sprint, in a 2-week sprint, but we can deliver the starting point for this. So what we don't want to deliver at the end of a sprint, what would be not good enough, is if we just created or delivered the ingredients for an MVP, so for a donut. So nobody can really enjoy this. And either if it's a poor donut, if we burnt it, so that would be not a good MVP either. So following all these principles, we create a lot of benefits, like enabling fast and focused delivery, co-creation with our stakeholders. You as project and change managers know how important this is to get buy-in from stakeholders, and it provides just enough functionality, so it doesn't have to be perfect in the beginning. And we add real value to the business. They can put it into use right away, and it improves their way of working right away. So sprints can be used also to break through this inertia that you have in lots of topics, lots of projects, to achieve lasting change. And this is one of the last slides now. So what happens actually after the sprint, when we have developed the MVP? What happens with the MVP? So first of all, there could be further iterations, as I mentioned, through future sprints, for example. So you could build a series of sprints to tackle a bigger problem. Or you could task the business owner to release the MVP to a wider range of stakeholders. So in a sprint, you work with certain stakeholder groups, but you could release it to a wider range. Or the business owner could continuously develop and refine together with their stakeholders the MVP in practice. So there are loads of possibilities, others that I've not mentioned here. So a lot of opportunity to improve the way of working after a sprint. And based on feedback that we got directly from stakeholders, there are a lot of benefits, and this has been proven a very successful approach to our portfolio of project and change methodology that we use regularly now. So a real genuine task and finish approach, genuine co-creation with stakeholders. It keeps the task moving. There is no standstill. We focus on progress. Hierarchies are dropped. There is a focus on the real problem, really creating value. And it's also about trying out new things, especially in a research environment, trying out innovative new approaches and see if it works for your area. So a lot of creativity involved in here as well. So I think this is everything from my side. I think hopefully we have a few minutes left for Q&A, for questions. I stop sharing now, if that's all right, to see your faces.
Thank you, Connie. That was great. I think we all want some donuts now. But it's a great analogy. I think that hopefully there's a few questions around the room. I personally can back Connie up in the claims there that this has been a great addition to the toolkit here at Newcastle. I was maybe skeptical at first, but it's delivering what we need to. Yeah. So I see Kate's got a question there.
I have. Yeah, does this only work within the same institution? Just kind of thinking of how research works, and we do get bottlenecks, and this sounds like an amazing sort of quick way of unraveling those, but it seems like you only seem to do it within the same institution.
Yeah, we used it actually. We started in Newcastle University, but we used this approach as well with partners. So there is one other institution that FMS, our medical faculty, works closely with, NHIP, Newcastle Innovation Health Center, I think it's, or partnership it's called. So we used a sprint approach with them as well, and it turned out to be very successful with this. So it's not limited to universities. You can take this approach, and if you need to tweak it and change it, you're absolutely flexible to do this and make it work for your institution. So I don't see any limitation here either.
And in terms of the fact that you have obviously developed a lot of this work, do you run training sessions to other universities that we could access about the methodology or not?
Not yet. We have developed this for in-house delivery for our internal colleagues, but we are thinking of, because it's very time consuming, of course, to arrange training sessions for colleagues. So we have thought about recording a training to sprint facilitation, and I'm pretty sure that we are open to sharing this with other institutions so that other universities could make use of that. We are also happy to, I guess I need to check back, but I don't see any reason why not, that we share our training slides. Of course, training slides are just written information, and it's always better to get more verbal explanation and lived experience behind this, and do the actual exercises when you attend a training. So I'm happy to share everything that we have with other institutions as well, and yeah, and maybe even arrange training sessions with other institutions if you think that's helpful.
That would be great.
So
So
Rachel,
Connie,
help me with that as well to organize this if this is required.
I leave you guys my details, my email address, and maybe I can contact you after this meeting just to have a further discussion.
Absolutely, yeah, no problem with that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That's great. Any other questions? So I think there's a bit of interest that you might be getting a few emails there, Connie.
Yes,
so,
absolutely. I'm always happy to share my knowledge and my experiences. No problem.
I mean, just a couple of things. We were going to go to a breakout room around the sprint training, but we are running low on time. So just to pose the questions, you know, to the room. So, I mean, has anyone got any comments on, would you think sprints would be useful in your current teams? And, you know, is this something that you could see it would be viable to set up within your organization? Or do you think that there'd be some barriers to that? Has anyone got any comments around how you might see sprint fit in within your institutions? You'd like to comment on or not? Kate's back. Thank you.
I paused. I wanted to give people a chance. No, I know it's been used. Sprints have been used when we rolled out Teams phone calls. So I know that Sprint as an agile methodology is used within the university for very much operational delivery projects, which I think I can certainly make sense of that. Within the framework of research, I'd love to think it would work, because sometimes you do just need to dedicate that time. Everybody who is involved in a project, with R&I in terms of getting a study open, it seems like the perfect idea. I think the engagement would be quite difficult because everything is urgent. Everything that I ask somebody to do, they're like, oh, well, something else urgent has come in. And so I love the idea of it. And I just need to think a little bit more about in practice. I can see within a team, within my own team, absolutely, because everybody is focused on the main goal. But if you're trying to bring in the NHS side of it and perhaps a contracts team, which isn't directly part of your research team, I sense that would be more difficult, but difficult doesn't mean impossible. So I'm just interested in it. I thought it just made perfect sense.
I mean,
so
Rachel,
yeah, sorry.
You the expert, you go. I'll just add something at the end.
Actually, I'm in the middle of a research culture sprint. So the topic was, and this was huge in the beginning, the interdisciplinary working and collaborative working in the research area. And it seemed huge at the beginning, and now we try to focus in the beginning of on physical space, interdisciplinary and collaborative working, and supporting that through physical space. So the sprint is currently going on, and we are also in the process of identifying if this sprint approach proves to be suitable for the research area, and especially culture related topics. And as we are in the second week now, and as I can see from my experience now, people are very enthusiastic and very positive about this experience so far. So I'm very hopeful and very optimistic that it can be used in the research space as well. And you're totally right what you mentioned in the beginning, Kate. We also use for IT projects and IT system related projects, sprint methodology a lot. And this is much more straightforward. And you have requirements gathering, you have stakeholder engagement and like testing in the validation and so on. So, and there are a lot of use cases when sprints can be used as well and can be a suitable approach. And I have included in the backup slides one slide where this is explained when a sprint approach could be used in IT related projects.
Yeah, and just to add, having worked on both the operational and research side, I think I can see where that you could apply this. So I think one thing that Connie did mention there, sprints, you have a lot of planning time. So if you're working across institutions, that's obviously, that could be done, you know, in the lead up, and you put the sprint far away in advance, that then you could all come together even in person to do the sprint. I mean, a lot of it can be done on the Teams, but it could be something nice in place of a conference or a workshop. You know, you get together for a short period of time. And then something we're also exploring as a university is De Montfort have adopted a 3-day sprint. So we're trying to understand more about what that is, because that seems like quite a small amount of intensive amount of time to get some results compared to, you know, the 2-week model that we have. So yeah, but I think I was skeptical in terms of getting people's time for 2 weeks. But if you're getting the right people, the right stakeholders, they're enthusiastic and they want to be there. So, you know, that's really key. And it's worked really well in areas that I've worked in.
Yeah, and maybe I should mention that the planning of a sprint is really crucial. So the timing of a sprint, you need to consider holiday periods and marking periods and whatnot, so that it's really a good time for stakeholders, colleagues, and students to engage and to be part of a sprint. And that means that you need at least 3 to 4 months in advance before you start actually kick off a sprint. So we are now talking about sprints that are happening in the next academic year and start planning those already. So that's something that you need to consider. So in that sense, it's not agile. You cannot do a sprint ad hoc and let's come together next week and do a sprint for 2 weeks. That doesn't work at all at the university.
Matthew's got his hand raised there.
Hello, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting model to consider. I used to work at a company that used sprints, but that was the way that everybody worked, if that made sense. So we were all in a sprint cycle permanently at some whatever stage of the sprint cycle. So kind of within my context at Warwick, I run the research office at WMG, one of the departments there. So our workload is a mixture of reactive and responding to needs of academics at that given point in time, plus also project work to ongoingly provide information, support, deliver set pieces of work that will improve processes, that will improve the offering and support that we can give to our academic staff. I was just wondering if you had any experience, whether your experience of running sprints in whether your context included that reactive component, and then therefore how do you plan sprints or deploy sprints whilst still being able to have that reactive ability to support academics when there's requests that come out of the blue that you know you weren't aware of before they appeared. I was just wondering if you'd had experience of managing that balance, and then therefore how you make a sprint work in that context.
Yeah, actually, it's all about prioritization. So you have your big tasks that you're focusing on related to your research strategy or education strategy. And then you have smaller pieces of work that might not be that urgent or might not have that much impact. on future change or improvements, but it would still help a lot, especially academics in their work. And it's not easy, I have to say. So it's much easier to get professional services colleagues in a sprint team. It's not easy to include academics, but once you are able to convince some colleagues to get in a sprint, they are totally bought into this and very enthusiastic, and are then like champions for sprints afterwards, I have to say. So that works quite well. And we are in this stage that we have, like, since over the last few years now that our sprint approach is in place, we have loads of champions across the institution that are really passionate about sprinting. They talk about sprinting when they encounter new challenges that are really complex, or with a lot of challenges included, and then that's on their mind, that a sprint approach could be suitable. And then they come to me. So I'm the right contact person in the university. If you plan generally sprints, then it would be good to have one person, one go-to person that you can talk it through. If a business owner has a topic and thinks, well, yeah, I could think about a sprint approach here, then talk it through and see if the requirements are in place to apply a sprint approach, and then start planning it. And it's all about trying it out. If you never try it and you stay in this theoretical space that, well, yeah, maybe not, you will never know. So go in. It's 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks that people need to sacrifice to find out if this is a good approach. And for us, it has been really successful, and has turned out to create a lot of value and benefits to the different areas. So what we do, at the end of each showcase, there is this big showcase event. The end of showcase event, it's called. And this event is not only used to show the solution to the stakeholders and get another round of feedback for the MVP, but also to promote the sprint approach to all the stakeholders that are attending this showcase event. And again, what Rachel did right now, asked you, all of the participants here, if you could think of a topic where a sprint approach is suitable. We do that in each of the showcase events. We ask all the stakeholders, could you think in your respective area a sprint approach makes sense? Could you imagine that this approach to sprinting could help you in your work? If yes, please talk to me. So that's how we work, and that seems to be very successful.
Okay, thank you, Connie. That was so informative. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
And Connie's offered there for people to get in touch with her. Hopefully we'll share those slides as well afterwards, and we can continue the conversation. So just to kind of finish up today, we have run out of time. So we were gonna, I don't know, Isabella, if you wanted to say anything about next steps for the network, or we'll just kind of take away everything you've put in today.
No, I think it's a good idea to talk about a few next steps. The common themes, I think we've got a lot of them on the Padlet, and they're coming out in the questions. The next steps from the network is it's been becoming clearer to me over this session, and also sort of discussions I've been having with various people over the next month, that there's a role here for the PRISM network to perhaps take the lead to develop a tailored project management training course for PRISMs, or possibly more widely for project management people who are more research focused rather than ops focused within a university, but we'll start with PRISMs alone. We are currently we're developing a grant to Research England to support the PRISM network for a number of years, and that will include funding for training projects and development projects. And I think developing a course such as this would be a nice thing to include in that grant. And I think it would be a headline grabbing thing that we could relatively easily explain is going to add value. So your comments in the Padlet today will help us guide that application. And I think the comments today have sort of indicated that there would indeed be an appetite for a cut down version of a project management course, one of the standard certifications that has got you know, the official imprimatur of one of these certifying bodies, but is specifically tailored for HEIs, first of all, and for research projects, secondly. I think that would be extremely positive. Somebody put in a note a few chats back saying, you know, where do we find funding to do that? It was you, Paula. It was your comment to say we need to find someone who can fund this sort of thing. It is extraordinarily difficult to find any funding body that is prepared to put money into developing project management for universities, which is such a blind spot. I think they just don't understand what a difference it could make. And so we're rather hoping that with the evidence that we've got from people who are doing work like Connie's, for example, and then the demand we've had for this session today, and the feedback that I hope you're going to help give us to tell our funding body that we're about to apply for that this was useful and that you need more, we should be able to develop an argument that would be strong. So that's the goal. Thank you all very much for coming. Let me just put a couple more final pieces of information in the chat, which has been busting today. Our next training session with PRISMs is, that I need to give you the link for that, don't I? That would be clever. The next training event is on Wednesday, the 26th of June, and it's with Praxis Oral, and we'll be focusing on knowledge exchange for PRISMs. If Sean, if you could dump that in the chat, that would be really cool. It's in the last newsletter in any case, so you should already have had it. Could you give us some feedback from the event today? That would be also very helpful. And we also have a standing form with information about future training ideas. So we've got some sort of things that are sort of evergreen that people want more information on. But if you can think of something, for example, that would be project management related, but was going into more depth on any of the aspects we've covered today, please put that in that form, and then we can take that further. Project management and research culture were the two most voted for pieces of training that we've got so far on that form, and those are the last two training events that we've done. So we're really focusing on demand from the membership at the moment. That's it. That's all we've got. 14:59, time to stop. Thank you all very much for coming. Hope it's useful. Thank you to Sean for some sterling tech hosting behind the scenes. Thank you to Connie and to Hannah and to Rachel and the whole Newcastle Massive for delivering so much value to us today. Thank you to all PRISMs, and see you next time.
All right. Thank you. Thank you to you, Isabella.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.